let's take a moment and thank our sponsor, Text Control. There's always something new from Text Control. As a developer, do you need to integrate PDF generation, document editing, or electronic signatures into your ASP.NET Core or Angular applications? Or maybe you want to learn more about the differences between electronic and digital signatures. Text Control is offering a free consulting service to educate you about digital document processing and how Text Control products can help you add these features to your applications. You just go to textcontrol.com/contact and you can request your free personal consultation. How cool is that? Textcontrol.com/contact and you can request a free personal consultation from our friends at Text Control. Hi, I'm Scott Hanselman, and this is another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm chatting with Nanxi Liu. She's a co-CEO at Blaze and a serial entrepreneur and founder. How are you?
I am doing well. Thanks so much for having me, Scott.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. So I just love to look at people's LinkedIns and I kind of like compare them to my own because of the road not taken. And it seems like you've been wired since birth to like make stuff and you just have to build. Have you always been wired to found new things and blaze new trails?
You know what? I think I've just had always a love of learning and trying new things. And so with that, and I would say a little bit of impatience mixed with getting bored easily has led me down the path of now then, starting things, building things, and going into all sorts of different industry that I have no right to be in.
Now, why would you say that? Why would you say you have no right to be in an industry? I think aren't we supposed to say that we have the right to be in any industry we want to be in?
Well, it's funny because I would say, I started in college, a biotech company, having only taken one biology and one chemistry course. I started multiple software companies, having only dabbled in, writing code as a kid and building websites and minoring in engineering. I had gone into sports, bought into a sports team, not having known anything really about that sport in particular. So that's why I say I've gone into doing a lot of things where I really shouldn't have any reason to go into it, except for just the fact that I was probably naive and just saying, let's just try this out and see where it goes.
If someone's listening in and they're thinking that, well, gosh, maybe I should have that kind of attitude and jump into things as well, like what do we tell them? And what are you bringing to those industries? If you just said that you're not a biology person, or you're not a software engineer, but you are succeeding though, right? Success is a pretty good metric. What are you bringing to these ventures?
I would say a lot of it is being able to be the person that brings amazing minds together. And so for each of these companies that I started, whether it was the biotech company, whether it was Blaze.tech, whether it was creating an Emmy-winning show, it was always with people that were industry experts, that were the best at what they do, and convincing them to work with me and convincing the fact that I'm going to take care of the business part. And if you can handle the technical piece, we're going to be a great team that is able to now not have to worry about, when you're starting a business, having to build a product plus do all the sales operation. It is a lot. And so when I say I can take half of that off of your plate and I can do the sales operation strategy, and of course, a really key piece, bringing in the money, whether that money is through investors, grants, or through just traditional getting money from customers, that's the part I'm going to take care of for you. Finding that kind of collaboration, and it doesn't even have to be that. Maybe you're the person that is the technical person, but you hate sales. Like my co-founder for Blaze, she is like, please don't have me really talk to customers. I love building product. And I'm like, no problem at all. And she's like, I would rather not speak to investors if I don't have to. I'm like, no problem. I love pitching our product to investors. And so it could be the other way around, but it's not. I'm finding people that have great complementary skill sets. And when we bring it together, we can go and build something successful. And now I have to say, I've done this in lots of different areas. They've worked a bunch of times and they've not worked most of the time.
I hope this analogy lands because I've been talking to my 17-year-old in his last year of high school about what's next. And I made the analogy that life is just a series of group projects. And, there are the people that bring that energy and create that energy and bring clarity to a group. And then there's the people that kind of drag the group down. I'm guessing, having just met you, that you are probably someone who did very well on group projects at school.
I loved group projects. I thrived off of it. In fact, it was so funny. This was a number of years ago, I would say. I was receiving an award for our biotech company, and one of the people there was the CFO of Tesla, and his daughter was there, who was my age. I didn't really recognize or remember her, but she was like, "Hey, we had an environmental engineering class together at Cal, and I was in your group project. And at the beginning of the group project, you said, guys, the easiest thing here is if I just do the entire project, we'll all get A's and then call it a day. You don't have to spend any time. This will just be really easy." So I've definitely done that, where I'm like, okay, let me see, what is the hack here? The hack is, actually, this is a pretty fairly straightforward assignment, and adding people is going to be more difficult. And then there's been the hacks where it's all right, we need to each divide and conquer. But it was a really, really funny story, because she was like, I didn't have to do any work and I ended up getting an A in the class.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. If that's the message I want to tell my son, but I will admit I have been in group projects where it's just like, fine, just let me do it. It'll be easier.
But efficiency. Sometimes it is I think with school, and how I approach school was, there are different avenues of learning, and sometimes how group projects are made and done and how assignments are crafted. I always sometimes felt like this is not the best way to learn about this. I'm going to just try to just show up to the class and get that A, and then focus on the other things that I think are bringing more value.
Yeah. That is definitely a challenge. And certainly that's our whole conversation about whether this is a useful exercise is one of the hacks that we have to apply ourselves to school. Just make the teacher happy and move to the next assignment. Unfortunately, sometimes is the experience at school.
I like to think of 80-20 rule. And I definitely apply that, I think, in business. That was really important too. And I sort of figured this out in school, and that I was doing lots of school. The school, when I was in college, took up maybe 10, 15% of my time. The rest of the 85% of the time, I was building things. I was starting companies. I was leading different organizations. I was elected vice president for the student body. And I was also working. And people are like, oh, how do you do this? Well, a lot of it is that 80-20 rule of making sure you don't need to do things to perfection, but you need to do it such that the execution is you fulfill it, and in places that you really care about and you want to be exceptional, then that's where you get to spend the time.
One of the threads that goes through most of the guests that I bring on the podcast is intentionality and being deliberate about stuff. It sounds like you're not accepting the defaults. You are doing custom. Your life is a custom life as opposed to one that just occurred. It didn't just happen, right? You tried to be intentional. Is that a fair statement?
I definitely think so. And there are some things where it was things that I was intentional about starting decades ago, where I think a lot of the things that I was able to do, for example, starting my first software company, some of the investors I got that were top-notch investors, I would say some of those seeds were planted in things I did in high school that led to being able to land these investors. For example, right out of college, I was asked to be on Lady Gaga's Foundation's Youth Advisory Board. And it's how do you get that kind of opportunity? Well, it's actually stuff I did in high school, where I was elected Colorado Youth Governor, and I was the youngest legislative intern for the Colorado State Legislature. And some of that then led me to then receive this leadership award alongside Governor Schwarzenegger and Senator John Edwards back in 2008. And the woman who had organized this, she then got tapped to be the executive director for Lady Gaga's Foundation, remembered me and asked me to be one of the first member of that advisory board. And so it was, again, I think about these connections in life as you just never know what that's going to lead to. And even similarly, for an investor that I raised money for, my piano skills actually made an impact in whether he invested in me or not. It was at the Goldman Sachs Tech Conference. And at this time, I had no network. I'm a 23-year-old starting a software company, my first one. I'm 2 years out of college. And here I am pitching this person that happens to be standing in line with me. And he's just sort of saying, hey, what kind of things did you do? And ended up mentioning piano, and that I played piano very competitively growing up. And there happened to be a grand piano at that hotel. And he was like, hey, why don't you play something for me? And I was like, all right, sure. And so I went and played a very difficult concerto, a Mendelssohn piano concerto. And he was so impressed that he was like, well, you know what? If you can do that well, he felt like that could potentially carry on to being a disciplined person in building your company. And he wrote a check because of that. And that's something that he always tells me to this day. He was like, I invested after I heard you play piano, which is kind of random and funny.
So first, that's an overwhelming amount of like talents to like just have in your pocket. But at the same time, another thing I like to talk about is the anatomy of luck, what the formula is for luck. And sometimes people will say, well, you know, I did it all myself. Like luck, there was no luck. I worked. But I feel like luck is opportunity plus being prepared. And what I'm hearing you describe is a lot of preparation, a lot of things that are in the back pocket, and then you knew which tool to bring out. So when the opportunity presented itself, you were there with preparation.
I absolutely think that you can create your own luck. In fact, somebody that I met right out of college as well, named Scott Sherman, who had done these leadership programs that I happened to participate in one of them. He said, you can create your own luck. How do you create your own luck? One of the things he says is building that network. Now, on top of that, I've sort of layered in my own, which is, yes, you got to know some great people. And at the same time, you need to be able to provide value. So I would say the other part of luck is if you could just bring value to lots of people without expecting anything. Because I do believe if you just help lots of people, the word will spread and people will tap you to say, hey, like, you know, do you want to be part of this or get recommended? This is how I met my co-founders. Is I was recommended to them. They were looking for a great CEO or a great co-founder. And somebody said, hey, you should meet Nanxi Liu. You should go speak to her. And this is how I got involved in this TV project that ended up winning a couple of Emmys. This is how I got involved in being able to be part of the Dodgers Foundation. It was just somebody saying, hey, Nancy helped me with this other thing, and I think she'd be great. And so I absolutely think luck is about the value that you can bring other people. It increases it. And then again, just the people that you know and that know you.
Some people might be hearing this, though. They might say that this sounds like a lot of privilege or a lot of access to people. Maybe you grew up, you know, super rich with a lot of like, you know, a Rolodex where you could just get the CEO of whatever or the board member of whatever on the phone. How do you answer something like that?
I would say, I think there are folks that are from that. That is definitely not me. My parents were teachers. I grew up, I came here as an immigrant. Before that, my parents were so poor, they couldn't afford to take care of me the first 5 years of my life. I lived with grandparents, aunts and uncles. And then when I immigrated then to the US, for my dad, it was like my first time seeing him in years. We lived in subsidized housing. Business and the concept of business is really foreign to them. And the idea that I could start a company was really like, it's a pipe dream. When I was growing up, but certainly they hustled. My parents hustled so hard, and I watched that. I admired that. And so when it comes to building that network, it is starting from scratch. And you can do it as young as when you're, you know, like in elementary school, just like volunteering or participating. I was part of free after school programs. There are still folks that I carpooled with when I was growing up that I still stay in touch with. There are obviously in college, that is one of the greatest places. But even for folks that didn't go to college, some of my co-founders from my last company, they dropped out of college, but they had built incredible networks. And that you have to do the work, which is you have to go and put yourself out there. When I started my software company in Los Angeles, I didn't know anybody in LA. I had gone to LA twice before, ever in my life. So when I went to LA, the first thing I did is I just went to all these websites that have like different meetups and whatnot. I just showed up at these events every time I go into an event. And I'm not, believe it or not, I'm actually not an extrovert. I have to force myself to be an extrovert. And so I'll mentally prepare, be like, all right, Nancy, just like 2 hours, you have to be there for 2 hours. And if that event has 100 people, you need to go and talk to 50 of them. And then out of those 50, maybe there's a couple of them that you'll follow up with that could be great contacts of yours that you'll make sure you follow up within that 24 hours. So it is a lot of work in doing that work. And I still do that today. Even though I have a vast network, I never want to go be complacent. So what I do is I want to, again, whenever I'm meeting people, I want to add value to them. So now I host, and there are things that if you don't have, you know, a large budget, there's still easy things you can do, which is just getting people together, great people that have a shared interests. Nowadays, I am lucky that I can go and host in my backyard, or I'll host a dinner, a lunch, a barbecue, and just invite awesome people, such that, I get to meet lots of great people, but then they can connect with other great people there too.
Yeah. Starting out, I really felt like user groups, we called them nerd dinners. Like anytime you can get a bunch of people with good energy around a table to just vibe, then those are where those connections happen. And then depending on who at the table has access and who doesn't have access, you can put together an inclusive team and use what Anwan Simmons called lending your privilege. If your privilege is that you know somebody, or your privilege is that you have someone on speed dial, at that moment when you have that idea, say, I'm going to introduce you to Nanxi. She's got some cool stuff happening over at Blaze. You should get on the horn with her. And then you make that connection and you step away and you've lent your privilege.
Yes, I would always say for everyone, be really generous with introductions. I am incredibly generous with introductions. And if somebody wants to help to connect, and now I think the people I meet, for the most part, they're great people. And, you vet them a little bit to make sure that whoever you're asking to see if they want to connect with them as well is going to be interested. But for me, whenever somebody's like, hey, it'd be great if I could connect with somebody, generally I'm like, yes, absolutely. I'll ping that other person, give them a snippet of, why this other person might add value to them and see if they want to connect. But for me, I never hesitate in wanting to just connect people together. And again, adding value, I think, is the biggest piece. And sometimes it's not just introductions, it's adding value in that you just show up. Like if I have a friend who is like, I just need an extra hand in of a neighbor who just moving boxes. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I will go there and let's just spend time and we get to chat and we get to move your boxes twice as fast into your home.
Yeah, I'm getting back to my kids. I keep trying to teach them that showing up is like half of life is just showing up. And whether it be showing up for a group project or just to hype someone up, if they're giving a presentation somewhere or they're going to be at an open mic, whatever you can do just to be present, that's like half the battle. And then whatever falls out of that, that's the thing. And you said that you have to force yourself though. Like you're not naturally, you seem very upbeat. You have to concentrate and say, I'm going to be upbeat today. I'm going to be out there today. I'm going to be an extrovert today. And I'm going to go out and support my friend today.
Yes, it is. And there are times, gosh, like I just want to sit back home, play video games, watch some Netflix instead of going out, right? But it's you know what? I made a commitment and I want to make sure that I'm always a person people know has integrity. That if I say I'm going to be somewhere, I will be there. Now that's different. That doesn't mean you have to commit to everything, but it does mean that if you say you're going to be somewhere, you absolutely will be there. And that's something that I'm really grateful for my co-founders at Blaze. I mean, we've now worked together for a decade. They are also the most incredible people because of their integrity. They follow through, and for them, their word is really like the full reflection of them. They always live up to what they say they're going to do. And I think that's really important because I think, people like to joke. I live in LA and sometimes folks are like, LA people are so flaky. And so all you have to do is to be that person that is reliable, that is the one that does show up and follows through with your commitments.
When you meet a co-founder, when you find someone, when you have that introduction, when someone has presented an opportunity to you, and then you're able to say now after the fact that you trust them and then you can count on them, how do you make that decision if this is someone you want to go into business with? Are you going with your gut? Are you calling a bunch of friends? Are you trying to find out what the scuttlebutt is about that person, or do you just make a decision?
So I would say there are times when I have made that decision very quickly because I felt like I had enough data points. So for my biotech company, I literally met my co-founder at a bar at midnight. And after an hour-long conversation where, well, first of all, I was introduced to him as a genius, and he already had MD, PhD from MIT, right? There's a lot of these data points where I'm like, okay, checks a lot of different boxes. And the fact that he was really loved by his peers who were fellow PhD students was also a testament to their character outside of just their skills and what they've succeeded at in their research. And so with that, I was immediately like, the next day we started our company, literally after that conversation. Now for my Blaze co-founders, it was that actually we were going through the same startup accelerator together. And so they were vetting me as much as I was vetting them because we saw each other through that process. And I saw, wow, they're really good at building product. And then my co-founders were like, wow, Nanxi's really good at getting customer sales and investors. And so we saw each other through this, couple of months process of working in the same office and decided, yes, we want to work together and go build this company together. And so that was a process. And oftentimes it is that, and now, of course, we've started 2 companies together. I've got with my co-founders, before we started Blaze, nearly a decade of data points of working with them to know that when I want to go start another tech company, this is the team that I want to do it with. And similarly, the first engineers we brought out were the top engineers that we had at our last company. They vetted us as, call it the bosses, and we vetted them as incredible teammates that we wanted to have. And sometimes these data points for bringing folks on take longer. And then other times, if you're just able to ask the right questions as well, you can make that go down to a much smaller time period. One that I like to joke about is for my husband, in a call it, our first date was this 4-hour date, 2 hours of dinner. And then we ended up walking around the neighborhood for another 2 hours. But during that time, I was very thoughtful in the questions that I asked so that by the end of the day, I actually felt like, I was like, wow, this person could be the person I end up with. And similarly for him, because he was asking me back the questions I asked, he was like, wow, okay, this could be a really fantastic fit if you are asking for the right question. And again, not afraid to go and broach subjects that maybe some folks are not comfortable asking in that first meeting.
That's funny. My wife and I, we met in July of 2000, and we got married October of 2000. Because
Amazing.
when you know,
Yes.
right? And isn't that funny? And you whether you're a serial entrepreneur or a serial monogamist, you're just like, I'm just kind of bumming around, and then suddenly someone comes along and you're listening and you're paying attention, and you say, I think you're my person. I'm going to hang out with you for a long, long time.
That's right. And oftentimes it's that I think it becomes easier to vet a co-founder when you had met a lot of amazing people or a lot of entrepreneurs that have started companies. And for me, I had worked within, whether it was in high school or college, I'd worked on so many different projects with so many different people that it gave me a good sense of the kind of person I am and the kind of person I work really well with. And so it's as much of, again, getting to know that person as it is knowing yourself. And then, of course, making sure that other person knows you really well. Because when you start a company with somebody, it is literally like getting married. And it's in your face. Everything from, do you have that same vision? Do you have that same work ethic? Do you have the same financial strategy and spending that these are all things you talk about when you want to get married to somebody. And with starting a company, I mean, those are things you might discuss in that first week you're building the company together. And so it is so important to make sure that you have as much data and you have as much of the values aligned as possible at the beginning.
Yeah, I've seen talks and interviews with you where you've talked about not just values, but also like culture. Now, sometimes the word culture is used kind of as a weapon to say a person's not a culture fit. What does culture mean to you when you're putting together like a leadership team?
Culture for me are the ways people behave and how you interact with them when there's nothing written about it. This is just, people are like, oh, this is just how we operate. So for example, for our culture, one of the key tenets is we're all builders and problem solvers. So for Blaze, that means we don't have people in our company that complain, because complaining means that you're just saying something's wrong and you're not fixing it. You're waiting for somebody else to fix it. So inside of Blaze, if people identify a bug or something needs to be improved, they're taking action. They're immediately talking to the engineer who could go implement it or putting on the roadmap, or they themselves are then submitting a ticket to say, hey, there's this bug there. If it's hey, I want to go and we got to get some new team gear. Like, for example, we started Blaze, we were trying to be really scrappy, and people were like, I think once we reach this next milestone, let's go and all get Blaze jackets. I mean, some of these small milestones are great idea. Let's go do it. Because they said, the problem there was like, hey, we don't have team here. But they also came up with the solution. Hey, when we hit this milestone, let's go and, have these jackets made for the team. And so that is part of our culture. Another part of the culture is we're all very independent. We have a work remote culture, which means that you really have to trust that person is going to follow through and do everything that they say they're going to do. And I think for folks, when we say, here's the deadline, I'm going to get this done. At Blaze, it's not like, hey, so where is that at? That was like 3 days ago. Where is it? It's the, hey, here it is. I'm setting my goals and I'm making sure I'm following through. And I think culture always, again, carries down from the leadership. So I'm so grateful for my co-founders, Tina and Bruno, who are, again, just such great people with integrity, with incredible talent and the most remarkable work ethic. And so they influence me a lot. And hopefully they'd say that I also influence them positively too. And with that, I think that builds a really strong culture where you don't have to set these rules. We've never written anywhere of like, you're not allowed to blow past deadlines. That's no rule. It's just that everyone always hits those deadlines and follows through with their responsibilities.
Yeah, being able to say that you're going to do the thing and count on it. And also what I call in the improv world, but also in the business world, yes and. If all they bring is no and all they bring is negativity and all they bring is I can't do that, here's 15 reasons why I can't do that, as opposed to 3, well, yes, we could do this and yes, we could do that. Like tell the leader, tell the CEO or tell the leader of the project, here's some ideas of how I've solved the problem, as opposed to just saying, here's a problem, there's a problem.
That's exactly right. And I will add to that, which is there are times too to have that balance. So I am that forever optimist. I'm not the one that's building product. Tina and Bruno, they lead the engineering team. So we have incredible no-code platform we've built. There are lots of things when it comes to building complex web applications. To do it with no-code is really difficult. So I'm the one that's like, okay, I want people to just be able to type something in natural language and via AI automatically spits them out, this no-code tool. And they're like, okay, yes, let me set some expectations, and they'll create actually that pushback, which is really important for me then when I'm preparing marketing materials, when I'm talking to customers. And so I'm grateful for my co-founders where I could, if they said yes to all the dreams, we would be very unhappy because it would be all over the place. But it's all right, let's define, let's make sure we know all of the pitfalls and let's really think through each of these items. And so there are times where I am grateful for them to be the one that pushes back on some of my requests and ideas.
Right. And that's, of course, what we're talking about is Blaze.tech. This is your smarter no-code platform. And the idea that you could actually type in English, like, I want this and I want it to work like that. And the Blaze AI then helps you build this application, which could theoretically make business people developers. It could be regular people developers. Anyone could be a developer with a tool like that.
Exactly. We built it actually for non-technical folks. We see that most of our clients actually are companies that are traditional industries. They're not tech companies where you have plenty of developer tools. In fact, there are industries like healthcare where you need HIPAA compliant tools. We're seeing lots of folks in construction, logistics, education, real estate building tools on our platform because they don't have a ton of engineers that they can tap into to say, hey, go build me this customer portal or go build me this inventory management software. It's that you can do it. If you can describe the tool you want, we always say you can build it inside of Blaze.
Yeah, exactly. There's that distance between the business person who has a business problem, and then the translation has always been from business language into code, and you're trying to narrow that down, make that shorter and shorter.
That's right. And it's been a very, very fun, certainly with no shortage of obstacles to go and make this product a reality.
Yeah. And it's funny, I've been talking to people who've been working in AI for years and thinking about these things. And then because of the hype that has happened in the last couple of months, suddenly they're getting even more attention. And they're like, hey, we were talking about this 2 years ago and no one listened. But now, because it's in the news, people want to talk to us. So that can only be a good thing for you and Blaze.
Yes, exactly. It's really funny because we built in AI right from the start as part of our strategy. And certainly for a no-code platform, like ourselves, it's very difficult to just suddenly build in AI later on. We structured it in such a way that it's very easy for us to incorporate AI and to allow the configuration of these different web apps and widgets in the Blaze platform to be able to process AI. And we were doing it for way before, all this AI stuff came out. And we're like, well, that's really cool. Now, this is possible. We're like, but actually, all of these things was around before, the big ChatGPT 3 came out. But we certainly love it. And we know that there's going to be continued tremendous growth in this area. And I think for us, what we like to do is we just want to help people solve problems. And I think for AI plus no code, it is an area that will speed up development for a lot of traditional companies that before, we always felt like these traditional industries were left behind with a lot of the new tech tools coming out because, again, they were so developer focused that we're excited to help these industries actually go and be able to build complex software and custom software on their own.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you so much, Scott. This was fun.
We've been chatting with Nanxi Liu, the co-CEO at Blaze, where you can build apps and tools with no code. And this has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.